Hi everybody, welcome to Stamping with Melva. I'm Melva Peters and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in British Columbia, Canada. And you can find me online at stampingwithmelva.com. Today I wanted to show you how to make a Starburst card. Now, I have to admit that I was very intimidated by these cards. They look like they're really complicated, but they're really not that complicated. And thanks to Leanne Binder, who is a demonstrator on the same team I'm on, who demonstrated this during a team event, I actually know how to make them now. And so I'm making them for my customer thank you cards for the month of April. So if you place an order with me in the month of April, you will get one of these cards in the mail. So I'm using the Symbols of Fortune Designer Series paper for my cards. I just love this paper. It's just so pretty. Now I am making, I'll show you the one that I'm making. There are two ways to make this, and I haven't made the full Starburst one yet. That's next on my list, but the one I'm making is kind of the off-center, off-centered Starburst. So let me switch over to my desktop and I'll show you what I mean. All right, so here's a couple of the cards that I've made. So when I say off center, my Starburst actually starts from one of the edges and goes around. So in this case, it starts from here and goes around. In this case, it starts up here and goes around. The ones where you have the Starburst in the center, so this moves up into the center and goes all the way around, is a touch more complicated, only because you have to do some fitting and measuring for your last piece. So I thought I'd keep it fairly simple for my thank you cards, since I need to make quite a few of them. Just a little bit different format for these two. This one is landscape and this one is portrait. But they're very similar and they've used the same paper. So let me show you how easy these cards actually are. So I've got a piece of soft succulent cardstock, and this is cut 4 1/4 by 11. You could, like my other samples, you could use 5 1/2 by 8 1/2. Doesn't really matter what your card base is. And I actually just want to score that at 5 1/2. All right. So as always, this is the side I scored on. This is the side with the raised line. So this is the mountain in my terms. So fold into the mountain and use your bone folder to give it a good crease. All right, there's your card base. Now I've got a piece of Calypso coral that is cut 4 inches by 5 1/4. And then I've got a piece of basic white that is cut just slightly smaller than that. Let me just give you the measurements. So this is cut, let's see, 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. So it's just going to be slightly smaller. We're just going to have a peekaboo of the Calypso coral when we're done. Okay, so that's that. Now, what you need to do is decide, if I can grab a pencil, decide where you want the start of your Starburst. So you could have it on either side, or if you're going to make a landscape card, top or bottom. So I'm going to have mine on the right. So I'm just going to draw just a little bit of a roughly halfway. So for me, I'm going to say that's about there. Just drawing a little tiny, there we go, you can see just a little tiny half circle there. That just allows me to kind of know where my Starburst is going to be. Now, what you need is a whole bunch of strips of Designer Series paper. I have been doing mine 6 inches long. They don't need to be that, but I just found it easier to cut them too long than too short. Now this is cut 2 inches by 6 inches, but I vary the widths. And so you could do 2 inches by 6 inches. You can do 2 1/2 by 6 inches. You could do 3 inches by 6 inches. But basically you're going to cut a bunch of these pieces and then you're going to cut them on the diagonal. So you'll end up with lots of pieces, and so you can make lots of cards with them. Okay, so if it's, you might, this one is directional, so just be aware that if you've got directional paper, sometimes the images are a little bit a little bit off. The other thing to note is that one worked for me, but really what you want to do is start with your cutting blade in the middle and cut from there. Sometimes if you try to go up from the bottom or down from the top, you won't get a clean cut on the ends. So I try to cut in the middle. That one actually worked for me. So this is quite wide, but I've got a whole bunch here that are cut on their different sizes. So this one actually is the same size, and I know I've got some here that are, here's one that's smaller. So this one would have been cut 3 inches instead of 4 inches. Okay, so we're just going to mix it up here. I'm going to use Calypso Coral. So I'm going to use some of these. So I tend to start, well, actually it doesn't really matter where you start. Just depending on how you start, you may end up with a tiny, tiny little piece in your corner. So maybe start so that you got a piece that you know it's going to be a half decent size in your corner. Now use your silicone mat, you're going to get glue. And if you know me, I don't like glue all over my fingers. So I try not to get glue, but if I use my silicone mat, at least I don't get it all over my workspace. All right, so I'm going to start here. And we're just going to add liquid glue. You don't need a ton, but you will get glue on your. So we're just going to add the liquid glue, and the point goes to the edge of that, or the outline of that semicircle, half circle. All right, so now we're just going to go around and around using alternates. Now, I think I've got about 4 different patterns here. It's really up to you. And you can either butt these up against each other, or you can leave just a little gap. So I'm leaving about a 1/16 of an inch or so. Oops, dropped some of my paper. Between. It's up to you whether you want to butt them up or have some color, or in my case, white showing. Again, there we go. I mean, we're going to trim this when we get around, fully around. So you're just going to keep going round and round, or beside each other until you come to the other side. Oops. There we go. All right. So I've just got some different pieces. Again, mine are cut different widths. If you have them all cut the same, that works too. But mine are kind of all cut different widths, but all the same length. So I am going to cut off a fair amount off of mine. This is one of my favorite pieces. Kind of looks like feathers. And we're going to cover up. We're going to have a sentiment here on the edge of it. So you can see I did a bunch of cutting of my paper ahead of time so that I had it all cut and ready to go. Now let's use another one of these. Oh, that's not cut properly. All right, I do want to use that one. I guess I didn't cut all the way through that one, so let's take, oh, there we go. Fold it a little bit. That's fun. And it looks even more amazing when you actually cut it off and you get your picture, or your pattern. Okay, there's another one of the clouds. Hopefully this is big enough. Oh, yep. No, it's not. All right, so I'm going to have I've got a little sliver here that do need to make sure this is going to stick, because sometimes when you get these little tiny slivers on the end, it doesn't stick very well. So I'm going to just stick that down like that and hold it until it's stuck. I've got glue. All right, so let's just leave that sit for a minute. I'll lift this off. So I do get glue all over. All right, so let's put my card together while that's adhering. So we can adhere this piece down. All right, there we go. And we can do some stamping, which I don't have a stamp set. That would be useful if I had a stamp set. Find a stamp set. Oh my goodness, I can't find a stamp set. The one I'm looking for is missing. Oh, here it is. Gosh, didn't pull my stamp set. So I'm going to use the Celebrating You, and I'm going to use the Thank You, which is this one here. Sorry about that. I should have had that going. So that's the Thank You stamp set. Okay. So I've got a piece of, just a piece of basic white cardstock that I'm going to stamp this on. You could stamp it. So I've got a couple of samples of what you can do for your sentiment. So this one I actually use my layering circles to cut. This one I've just fussy cut. I've stamped it and then fussy cut around it and then put a mat behind it of the soft succulent, which is what I'm going to do this time round. So I'm just going to stamp this here, leaving space around it. So I've stamped it in Calypso Coral, and I am just going to, if you follow me, you know I just often fussy cut out my sentiments. There we go. And now I'm going to take some mini dimensionals, put them on the back of this. Try not to move that one so it doesn't show. And I'm going to take and stick this to a piece of soft succulent. Ah, that one didn't stick because I pulled it off. There we go. Let's put another one on. All right. So I'm just going to take this and stick to a piece of soft succulent. And now I can take and just cut around it, roughly the same width on all sides. There we go. So I've got a matted sentiment. So that's that. And I might as well, while I'm here, I've got this piece of designer series paper that I trimmed off. So I'm going to put this on the inside of my card. Or inside of my card like this. I like to use up these extra pieces of designer series paper. And I'm just going to then take my paper snips and trim that off. All right, so now this piece can go on the inside of my card. And then my Starburst should be ready to trim. Hopefully the glue has kind of dried enough that it won't be too messy. All right, so there's the inside of my card. That's the front of my card. And now we can take and pull this off of the silicone mat. And I have a pair of scissors, paper snips that I was using the other day that are all gluey. So I'm going to use this. You will get glue on your paper snips. So just take your paper snips and now trim just around. So I've turned this over so I can see where the edge of my basic white piece is. And you're just going to trim all around even with the edge of your basic white. Like this. I haven't quite figured out what to do with all these little bits that you get when you cut this off, but there's got to be a use for these. All right, one more side where I have just a little edges, little kind of corners that I needed to add in. There we go. All right, let's get that off to the side. So there's my Starburst. Isn't that pretty? Now let's put that on so it opens like this. So we're going to have the I need to trim this a little bit more. There we go. Just a little points that are not quite trimmed off. There we go. All right. So that goes there on like that. And now I can take and I'm just going to take and put my sentiment right there. So whatever your sentiment is will go kind of right over the focal point or the center of your Starburst, and it really will hide any imperfections. Like that. And then I can take, I think I'm going to use more dimensions. No, always pop-up stuff. So you probably can't see it, but I can still see my semicircle or my half circle that I cut. So I'm just going to put that right over top. There, isn't that pretty? I love these Starburst cards, and I'm so excited I now know how to do them. Now, I did add some polished dots, which are the embellishments that come with the symbols of fortune. So let's add some polished dots on. These are in Calypso Coral and Very Vanilla, but they go with any pink. Oops, where did that go to? Or even basic white. You'd never know that they are supposedly very vanilla. Actually, you wouldn't even know that they're Calypso Coral either. I have used them with polished pink. I've used them with Magenta Madness. Oops, I lost that one. All right, come on. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay, there's some polished dots. And this is the soft succulent satin ribbon. So let's just cut just a little piece of it. So that's about 3 inches or so. We're just going to fold that in half and take a glue dot. Stick it together, just kind of in a V, and then put another glue dot on the back. And we're just going to take your pick tool and tuck this up underneath. You could put this on first, and it might have worked better if I had done that, but it works this way too. Just take your pick tool and tuck it underneath. There we go. So a little bit of ribbon on it as well. All right, so 3 different versions of my Starburst card. This one is landscape. These 2 are portrait, but they all look just slightly different, just depending on what you do with the sentiment piece. All right. So if you put an order in with me this month of April, you might get one of these in the mail. I'm really excited to send them out, and hopefully my customers will love them. If you have any questions while you're watching this video, just leave a comment under the video, or if you found your way over to my blog, which the link is underneath this, all of the written instructions and measurements will be on the blog. So if you found your way over there, leave a comment on my blog as well, and I'm happy to answer your questions. If you're coming in through YouTube, if you're watching this, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you get notified when I do upcoming videos. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Happy stamping.